Welcome to One Mind Zen. Tonight's Dharma talk is given by Cheolmin Prajna.
Today I'm going to be sharing a story with y'all called The Hummingbird in a Forest Fire. A long time ago, a reckless and thoughtless real estate developer decided to set an old growth forest on fire. He decided by clearing the forest, I could then build a luxurious mansion, and around the mansion, a large village with many houses and buildings surrounded by wide boulevards and highways. I can have my friends join me and enjoy the results of my handiwork. We can master this forest forever, he declared triumphantly. This developer did not consider the animals that made their home in the forest. Eventually, he started a forest fire. At first, the fire began burning small shrubs and bushes, and only a few of the animals paid attention to the flames. However, the fire began to spread quickly, and soon it escalated and was out of control. Flames spread through the treetops, and the entire forest was soon being consumed in the raging inferno. As the blazing fire spread, the forest animals began running to safety, frightened by the sight of the rapidly moving flames, the choking smoke, and the loud crackling noise of exploding embers. The younger and stronger animals quickly fled the rapidly moving fire and soon arrived safely at the edge of the forest. The birds quickly flew into the air and escaped. The burrowing animals descended to their underground holes. However, the very young, along with the frail and aged animals, could not outrun the fire and were left behind. They were destined to a terrible fate. The animals that managed to outrun the firestorm stood on the edge of the forest, stunned and horrified by the destruction of their forest home. They gazed silently at the intense fire and stood helplessly and downcast with certain knowledge that the fire was devouring their friends and neighbors who could not make it out of the forest. They were paralyzed from taking any action. In an act of bravery, many of the elephants came forward and stated that they could douse the fire if they wanted to. One of the wise elephants said, "All we have to do is siphon enough water from the river with our trunks and spray it on the fire, and it will put out this terrible fire." However, none of the elephants took any action. They just stood there mesmerized by the advancing fire. Certainly we can do better than that, and we don't even have to fetch any water, stated the king of the lions, not to be outdone. All we need to do is make a mighty roar, and the fire will become fearful and quickly leave the forest. Even though the pride of lions issued loud and mighty roars, the fire continued burning. The leader of the zebras followed. We could distract the fire with our colors. We can start running back and forth, and while the fire is trying to understand if we are white with black stripes or black with white stripes, it will be confused and stop burning. That's how we will save our forest. The zebras pranced and danced with great fervor. The relentless fire continued to devour their ancient forest home. Then the head of the laughing hyena pack came forward, except none of the hyenas were laughing. They appeared to be very disturbed. Our forest home is being destroyed. Somebody do something. We are only hyenas and known for cowardice, not for our valor. You other stronger animals, the lions, the elephants, the tigers, one of you must do something. Nevertheless, they did not remain with the others for long and left for their underground dens to meet and discuss the situation. Once they were sequestered by themselves, the scavengers shared their great delight at the sight of the burning forest. Imagine all of the delicious morsels of carrion we can feast upon once this fire has burned out. Just think of all the dead and dying animals that are just waiting for us to snack on. They cheered each other, grinning ear to ear, their mouths dripping with saliva. This is a great day indeed for hyenas. They congratulated each other. The snakes that lived under rocks were not particularly concerned. Well, this fire will soon be over, and we will crawl back under our rocks. We do not really care what happens to the forest. Everyone knows that fire does not burn rocks, and our homes will be safe after the fire is over, they assured themselves in a tone of moral indifference to the plight of the other animals. The weasels could actually see an opportunity to improve their situation after the fire. What is the big deal about this fire? Once the forest is burned down, we will trick the new master to let us live in his village. We will never bother him and will never complain. We pretend that we obey all of his rules, but we will look for our opportunities. Furthermore, if we stay out of his way, he will let us live and prosper. They comforted each other. It was finally the tiger's turn. who all looked acquiescent and dismal. The Tiger Emperor stepped forward and somberly advised the others. Our forest is gone, and our homes are no more. There is nothing that can be done, and there is no hope. We will never be able to go back. It is time to travel somewhere else and build a new life for ourselves. The developer saw the inferno and was very pleased. He said to himself, "This is the culmination of all I've ever wanted to achieve. I have destroyed the forest and everything in it. I truly have now succeeded." Of course, the developer did not think much about if the forest animals died or lived. To him, it was inconsequential. He only thought about personal gain and profit. I have eradicated the forest, and now I own the charred remains. It is mine. It is mine. It is all mine forever. While all of this intense conversation was going on amongst the animals, a tiny hummingbird was flying furiously back and forth to the river, carrying droplets of water in her beak. After a while, the chattering animals noticed the hummingbird's strange behavior. "Hummingbird, what in the world are you doing?" they asked. "Oh, I'm just carrying water from the river to put out the fire," replied the hummingbird casually as she continued to fly back and forth to the river, scooping up droplets of water. The whole animal colony burst out in laughter. "Hummingbird, do you know how foolish you look trying to put out this great fire with the tiny droplets of water you carry in your beak?" the animals inquired. The hummingbird continued to shuttle droplets of water from the river, unfazed by the laughter and ridicule. "You may think I am foolish, but I'm doing all that I can do," replied the hummingbird. "But Hummingbird, surely you must know that your droplets of water will do nothing to put out this fire." "Why are you wasting your time?" replied the puzzled animals. "I'm doing all that I can do. And maybe if we all did what we could do, instead of standing around talking about what should, could, or needs to be done, then perhaps we may be able to put out the forest fire," advised the tiny hummingbird as she flew back and forth to carry more droplets of water from the river. The big animals were not persuaded. "You can gather 1,000 hummingbirds like yourself, and even all of you wouldn't be able to put out this fire," the animals derided the gutsy hummingbird. The hummingbird briefly hovered to explain herself to the large animals. "You see, this forest is my home. This is where I was born. This is where Grandpa and Great-Grandma Hummingbird were born. This forest has been good to all of the animals who made their homes in it. Our ancestors did a lot to make this forest a good home for all of us, and many of them died fighting to save this forest from many previous developers." The hummingbird continued, "Surely you know none of the previous developers succeeded in destroying our forest home because our ancestors were strong firefighters. They fought the fire with everything they had, and I'm fighting this fire with everything I have. Even though you may think I'm foolish for trying to carry droplets of water in my beak," concluded the hummingbird as she flew back once more to the river. When I initially read this story, I about burst out in tears, because how precious is it, and I see it reflected. I see it reflected in everybody. I feel like I speak often to Venerable Unsan about the fact that we're all just doing everything that we can, more or less, and that's really all that we can do. Oftentimes, me especially, I get caught up in the idea of, we make these great vows to save all beings from suffering, and to get caught up in this idea of, it has to be these grand statements of going out and being of benefit to others, and there's nothing wrong with that. But oftentimes, it's the simple things that we do for one another. They help to put out those forest fires within our lives. It reminds me of something that Zen Master Wanji said to me one time when we was on our travels. He said, "The entire world is on fire. What can you do?" And I responded, because if the entire world is on fire, then we're all burning. But that's not all that we can do. We don't have to burn. That's an option. We can choose to take the little steps in our lives to try and make the world leave it a little better than we found it. To put out the little fires here and there that we notice, to try and ease the suffering of not only ourselves but the people around us too. even in small ways, just being there for a parent, being there for a grandparent, spending time with your child, playing video games with them, watching a movie, feeding, making a good meal for them, making a good meal for yourself. Simple things. It's not always the big shows or the big gestures of compassion that save the world. Sometimes it's the small things too. So be like the hummingbird, if nothing else. If you can't do anything else, be like the hummingbird. Thank you.